you want to book acting work. We hear that, and we want you to have that. But here's the thing. The industry is desperate for leaders, for human connection. And that's what it really wants, even if it doesn't feel like that. And that's how you book work.
By taking you inside the craft, the casting room, and the business, and bringing other industry experts into the conversation, we really dig in. We pull back the curtain of the industry and show you how much power you really have as an artist. By bringing your humanity to the work and the industry, you become an artistic leader, the kind of actor who books work.
Nothing excites us more than seeing you express your unique artistic voice in the work and humanize the business.
And have all the tools you need to be a championship-level working actor at this very time in an industry that needs your voice and your leadership.
Industry and artistry. This is the only place you're going to hear this.
I'm Risa.
And I'm Steve, and this is the Acting Podcast from the BGB Studio. This is our very first podcast of this new series.
Yes, it's our first episode of the Acting Podcast, officially. I'm excited.
So am I. I'm excited as I can be for someone who got up at 2:30 in the morning.
Why did you get up at 2:30 in the morning?
You know why, but thank you for asking.
I saw that you had sent an email at 3:24. I thought, oh.
Right. My wife is 41 weeks pregnant, so she's not sleeping. So
what does 41 weeks mean?
Neither am I. 41 weeks means that there is a lot of anxiety, and at this point, hopefully letting go of control, which is hard, which is something we deal with actors all the time, right? It's like, this is tantamount to me sitting in the waiting room for the network test.
Oh my God.
and I thought I was up first, turns out I was up fourth, or whatever, right? It's like those parallels of presence when you have this massive life event that's about to happen, and you don't know what it is. It's sort of, you're just walking blind. So in a beautiful way, that facilitates presence because it has to. Because I spent like 4 months of the pregnancy trying to let me control every aspect of this. Then you realize, your ego has no agency here. You cannot control anything.
Wow.
And so here I am, sleepless, but here.
And so how in all of this, trying to let go and be present with whatever's happening, what does that look like for you? Just in terms of feeling your feelings and
Sure.
what's coming up?
So this is the Acting Podcast, so, and to me, because actors are our life, we're around them all the time.
Yeah.
I see it in that context also that, I've been around a little bit, done a lot of work on myself, trying to heal all wounds and that kind of stuff. And you get to a place where you think that it's linear. I figured it out. I got a leg up on the universe. I'm good now. And then life happens. Then you get married. Then you have to change everything in the context of the old demons come back and they have to be shifted around. You have to come back to presence. My first daughter is born. So it's this constant thing in the same way that actors have these spikes of success and then they end. And then what do? You got to come back to the basics. You got to come home. Why am I doing this? What's the point? What's important to me? So for me, it really is about stopping and coming back to my breath. I almost elicit an eye roll in myself when I say it because I've been really, if there were anything else to do, I would probably do it. Mm-hmm. But that's all I know how to do. Driving here to the studio, knowing that I'm leaving, my wife, and she's very uncomfortable and very tired. My daughter's on summer vacation. My mother's there. There's a lot going on. And just the only thing I can do with everything that's going on and things that are going on in the studio is just stop and take a breath. And I'm here, and these are incredible things that are happening, and that's it. And I think it's the same thing for actors who get to this place of trying to make it in Hollywood, which is what we're going to talk about today. And then the dream comes true, and then it doesn't, and then it does, and then it doesn't, and you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a cycle. It'll come up and down and up and down. And ultimately, all you're left with, and how wonderful, is you're an actor. You're a creative person. You get to do this. It's the best ever. And you don't have a lot of agency over the industry, but you can be in artistic joy, if you so choose, really consistently.
I think that's huge. And that's the answer.
And you know that, Risa, Bramon, Garcia, because you've done this and hit the walls and climbed the mountaintops and hit the walls.
But you have to keep reminding yourself. You do. I had to do that this morning myself, was just to stop and breathe and meditate, contemplate, just be present with, this is where I'm at right now, and come to gratitude and appreciation for the fact that whatever this is going to be gone. And so can I find joy in it? Like, where's my joy in this? What really, really matters? Because none of that crap matters. And we'll talk about that, as we go along now, in terms of what matters and what doesn't. Because if you want to make it in Hollywood, you have to keep coming back to your values, to the things that you care about, to the things that light you up, to the things that connect you with other human beings, to be able to affect the world and your audience, whatever your audience is, to make a difference through your art. And that may seem like all woo-woo-y, and yeah, that's what, people do in Seattle when they do theater. But in Hollywood, it's got to look like something else, right? There's got to be a plan. And we're doing this business of acting class, and we just keep coming back to organically the same stuff,
That's
right?
And you can spend an entire career trying to make that not so, and you'll come up short every time. Like, again, it's this battle that the Buddhist masters put you through when they're teaching. They create a situation in which you have to realize that your ego has no agency, that it is not in control.
Say more about that, because I think that's super important.
Well, so the sort of classical, like, Zen Buddhist master, someone shows up. And it happens here, by the way, at our studio. Someone shows up saying, look, I want to get a leg up on the industry. Give me the thing. And we say, oh, okay, you want to have a successful acting career? We've been doing this for many decades, and we've guided many successful acting careers. We have a sense, start here. No, they say, I need the audition class to do the X, Y, and Z. We say, you could do that, and that can be helpful. If you want to get there efficiently, you start here. And so eventually, if they're willing...
they say, but I've been there.
Yeah, no, they say. No, I've done that work. Come back to your breath.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. No, I did that in college. We're good.
Yeah.
And so eventually we come back, and the transformation happens when they get to the place where they start checking their desire for success, and they realize that really you have to mitigate your desire. You have to do the work of enjoying the work for its own sake. But that's tricky, right? That's really tricky because you want this thing so badly. And either because you get beat down by the industry so much and it robs you of your self-worth and everything, do you get to that beautiful place of the awareness, or you have a little bit of trust in yourself in the process and get there a bit more efficiently. But
and maybe a little slower than you imagine, because it's always going to be not putting on the brakes, but letting go of speed.
Absolutely.
In favor of efficiency.
Absolutely.
And clarity.
Because so the bottom line is that you can think, no, I'm different. I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to think my way to success. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, even like point of sale for an actor is, are you completely present, vulnerable, moving another human being on an emotional level? That requires letting go. You can't do that fully and be in a deep place of, oh, but I want this so badly. Actors know this more than most people, right? Yeah. When you don't give a shit, that's when all of a sudden you're looser, blah, blah, blah. So how do you create a situation in which you don't give a shit? Well, it's hard because you give a shit, and that is the thing that allows you to go, oh, wait a minute, I can't not think of a pink elephant, if that makes sense. So we just let go of that constant desperate craving of, let me go to another damn casting director workshop because maybe this one will get me the co-star that makes my dreams come true, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what you're missing is this incredible opportunity to be a fucking artist and do the work that happens in these classes. We're in the classroom right now, Studio A. We're like, if these walls could express the stuff that's happened here, it's stunning.
My God, yes.
But an actor says, but how do I do that in the audition? Oh my God, you just did it.
You just did it.
So it's all in your mind.
Yeah.
But I'm in a different room. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we find success with actors here, and we often do, it's when they've gotten to that place of transformation. And as you say, it takes years. This is not a half-assed version of something. You can't possibly. We're talking about real human connection. So these warriors here who show up and have 4 years of drought, 5, 10 years of drought before they hit their first TV series or their second or their fifth or whatever, are in here doing the work of calming their mind, letting go, destroying ego, and losing themselves in the artistry of it. And I think ultimately, if there is a secret to success, that's it. And I also don't think a lot of people are saying that. I don't hear that message
Well,
out in the world.
not at all. Because most people think that there's supposed to be some formulaic thing. So you do this, then you do this, and then you do this, and then there's a concept that everybody has because they're not slowing down to really look at what matters. Again, this is coming back to what matters. Is, well, you get that co-star, man. You just get that great co-star, and then maybe after 3 or 4 co-stars, you get that guest star. Whoa, great! And then you get the recurring guest star, and then it leads to a series regular, and then you get a little part in a Quentin Tarantino movie, and then, red carpet, and all is amazing.
Right.
And there you go. And damn, like, A, that doesn't happen, and B, like, what does that, is that why you became an actor? So you could go on this kind of insane, arbitrary journey from co-star to guest star, to series regular, and it makes no sense, but that's what everybody believes. Like, we gotta, they're drinking the Kool-Aid because that's what everybody's saying. And so you gotta just throw that all away.
Absolutely.
And drink some clean water and just get back to these things, because the truth of it is, and I was talking to an actor about this yesterday in a career coaching, who was saying, he's doing this great play, and he goes, well, I could either just do plays like this, or I could, get an agent and have a career. And I'm saying, so you get the agent, and the agent submits you, and all the agents in town are struggling to get people in the room, which is why they're not signing any new people unless they're, 20 and have some diversity checkbox and writing their own stuff and, have a YouTube channel and so forth.
Because they think all those things matter, but they may or may not.
But again, it's like that's what we believe matters, and so that's what everybody's buying into. So how can you be novel? So he gets the agent, he gets an audition, he gets a role, a co-star, guest star role, and then what, is he going to give up all that glorious, beautiful work he's doing in the theater that's making him happy? Like, what is one thing, why is it an either or? Because that seems to be some paradigm that you're aspiring to that has nothing to do with who you are as a creative being, as an artist, as an actor. So the question for you guys, I would say, is who are you as an actor, and why do you care? And how does this matter to you, really matter to you? And then how are you going to now take steps? And I think some of it is what the steps are. And we have a lot of ideas about, steps you can take, industry steps, and we'll get to that. But what are the steps that you can take to, as you say, drown yourself in this beautiful artistry? And you know what? It takes work, and it takes shifting. I was listening to somebody say this, and I think it's kind of brilliant. So, discipline and habits, like, you need to change your discipline and habits, but you already have habits. You actually have habits or discipline. You are disciplined doing things that don't serve you.
Right.
You're actually committed to, days and days binging on Netflix. Right. You're committed to eating badly. You're committed to sleeping, late.
30 hours a fortnight is your practice.
Yeah, right. It's true.
And you're going to get really damn good at it too.
Yeah, well, good for you. But the great thing is, you have a discipline. If you actually just evaluated what you're committed to, what you're good at, what your discipline is, you would realize, oh, look, I'm doing all this stuff, and it doesn't serve me. I am spending 4 hours a day on Instagram. That's actually a practice and a discipline.
Right.
Like, what if you spend 2 hours a day doing that, or 2 hours a day on 2 hours on Fortnite, 2 hours on Netflix? Instead, what would you do with that other time? So this is about really giving yourself the space to reconfigure your practice and your discipline and start doing things that matter. And maybe you can't do them alone, and that's okay. But some of making it in Hollywood includes that kind of, rethinking of what your practice is, coming back to all that incredible, exciting joy that lights you up, that has nothing to do with a co-star on a TV show. And we're not saying that you shouldn't do that. Of course you should be on TV shows. Of course you should be in Quentin Tarantino movies. Of course you should have a career and make money doing it. But the process of getting there takes some serious rethinking for all of you.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting is that, and they don't tell you this either, is that there will always be a reckoning. Whether it happens earlier in your career or after some success or whatever. And by the way, it'll probably happen a number of times over the course of a career where you hit a wall, where you find yourself in the desert. And it's those moments, those important moments, again, in the interest of an acting career that lasts decades, where you better have this kind of practice or the ability to be so flexible that you can shift when you need to shift, to change habits, to grow, etc. That's essential.
So what were one or two of your walls that you hit that created a mandatory shift in your practice and your experience?
Yeah, well, there were, I think, two that I think are really important is I was that kid who was 18, 19, whatever, and didn't give a shit and exercised and expressed a certain amount of privilege. And that came through in my work, which made me perhaps interesting without having to be an actor, quote unquote. I could come in with some personality, and I did well. I did well early on. And then at a certain point, it wasn't necessarily that things were drying up for me. It's that stopped working for me. It started feeling hollow for me when I was 19, playing 16 on some MTV show with a flashback to 15, and it started to feel ugly to me. And by the way, my pursuit of an acting career sort of came running from a broken home. I wasn't really like, here's something that I can do that's exciting and sexy and has the potential for fame and fortune, and I can just start like bouncing around to different cities, New York, Los Angeles, Vancouver. This is great. Let's just go, And so it wasn't necessarily rooted in some sort of love of the craft. That came as I went. I didn't know that I loved it, but I did. And certain parts of it I loved more than others. But so that was the first thing. I needed to deepen my work, and that's when I started really studying in a serious way. And then the other piece of it was, once I had looked over the mountain and seen the promised land and been a series regular and worked with some people who I would consider sort of like, oh yeah, they're at the pinnacle of the industry, and their shit stank, just like mine and just like everyone else's. And I talk about this moment somewhere around season 5 of a TV series, episode 5 of a TV series, where you're an hour 16 of shooting, and you go, it'd be nice to be at home. and it's an incredible moment when it's like, wow, I would have given my right arm for this thing, and now I'm here. And the human experience is such that it involves suffering. And so I'm tired, and we've been at this for a while. And so some of the luster was lost in it all. And I was left with, what do I love about this? What is essential of this for me? And for me, the essential part was being in and around people who are expressing their emotional truth, finding their unique voice, et cetera, et cetera. And the ego of the audition process and the hits that came with it, I was unable to navigate to the point where it was so clear to me that I didn't want that. And I still don't. It's interesting. People say, like, on some level, don't you? And I really don't. Like, if someone were to offer me some opportunity, I don't know. Like, I go home to my wife and daughters, and I have dinner with them at the table, and like, that's super important to me. And so, hey, you're going to be in Toronto for 6 months starting tomorrow. Get on a plane. I have no interest in that. And I'm around the work that I love.
That's the thing. You found what it was about the work that mattered to you, and you created that for yourself so that you could have that.
And what I realize now is that I could have done that and also been an actor. I didn't have the skills for it then. And that's part of what I think we're teaching now, is that it doesn't have to be this all or nothing thing.
Right.
You can, in fact, navigate the audition process as, amazing and hideous as it is in all its dynamic truth and its limitations. You can navigate that and be a whole happy person. I didn't have that training back then. 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't have that ability. That was it. And if you loved it, great. And if you didn't, you sucked it up and figured out a way to make it work.
Right.
But I'm a hypersensitive person. Was then and still am. And so, it would take a toll on my body, on my eating, on my all of it. And it just didn't feel worth it for me at the time, because I didn't know how to get through it.
Yeah.
So, but you know this too, don't you? The walls that you've hit.
Yeah, I've hit a lot of them, and they're all huge lessons, and they feel impenetrable, and they feel like it'll never happen the way I imagined it would. And then it shifts and something else happens. It takes a lot of trust, a lot of letting go, and also a shift in what you focus on. And that's hard, and I've hit some hard walls. I directed a movie, 200 Cigarettes, where I was told by all these agents who were just, lifting me up in some kind of thrown like, oh, you're going to be the next. And
As they do.
As they do. And it was before, people wanted women directors. So it was a more challenging time. But I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I turned some things down. I think I made a couple of mistakes potentially. But a lot of it was I didn't know and I didn't have great guidance. But I was told that I was in Hollywood jail. I remember exactly where I was sitting in the parking lot, corner of Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard, when my agent said to me, "You're in Hollywood jail." And I said, "Well, how long am I in jail for?" Because I knew I had an idea of what that meant. Hollywood jail, which for those of you who don't know what that expression means, it means that basically nobody wants to hire you for a while, so that you're put in what's called Hollywood jail. And so I said, well, how naively, well, how long will I be in jail? Oh, we don't know. Could be 3 months, could be a year. But, you'll get out. Just let people have their time. And the only reason I was in Hollywood jail was not because I didn't make a decent movie, was because my movie didn't make money. And but he didn't lose money. That's what I kept saying. He didn't lose money. But Paramount pulled it out of the theaters because they said to me on the phone, the head of distribution, the movie will make more money if we pull it. Which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. My husband explained what that meant. And so I thought, okay, that doesn't mean I'm a failure, but it looked like it was a failure at the time. It's turned out to be this like little cult hit among, every 15-year-old girl or whatever who comes up and sees it. And that's all fine and good. But I thought things were going to change. And when that happened, I was devastated. I just thought I didn't know what I would do with myself. And I went back to casting and it was all right, but it really required me to just, as they say, pull myself up by my bootstraps, but more importantly, be in a place of creative expression. That's not my casting experience. My casting experience is great and valuable, but not that. So for me, it's always been finding something that I can do that makes me creatively satisfied. Finding that. And sometimes it is what pays the bills, and sometimes it's a line next to what pays the bills. But if I don't have that, and I believe that so for every actor, for every artist, that if you're not in enough of the work, if you're not fully expressing yourself creatively, if you're not an artist, then you're dry. And that's what happens. So then you dry up and then you go, but I haven't had an audition in 6 months, and then my agent dropped me, or my agent hasn't, set me out in a year. And so you start to feel all of that despair, and that coupled with the artistic drought that you're feeling that's what's devastating.
And I think that it makes you prone to somebody saying you're in Hollywood jail and you believe them, or that actually puts you in some sort of jail.
I believe
right?
that.
Yeah,
I went home,
right.
I said, Renee, I called him weeping, and I said, I'm in
the
jail.
Audacity of these people to tell you that, or to decide. I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
It is ridiculous. And he said to me, sort of jokingly, "Did they tell you when you'd get out?" And I said, "They did, but they didn't really have a time. Like, I don't know how long I'm in for." And, it's crazy. But so you as actors tend to put yourself into that jail
Right.
yourself, because you believe that there's an inside and an outside.
Right.
And I know that it's really hard in this town to feel like you're inside. But you have to, first of all, you have to decide forget inside, outside. Where are you at? Where is your world? Where is your life? What is your experience? You don't have to be in anybody else's box or map at all. It's not an either or. You don't have to play by those rules, because the great thing, and we talk about this all the time, if you play by your own rules, if you're fully immersed in this thing, then those people who are like, looking at their GPS to find the next big star are going to find you over time, because you are so deeply immersed in this incredible creative expression. And it may not, for that actor, it may not be one play that you're the star of. It may be 10, and it may take 10 years of that. And then somebody or many people are going to go, "Oh, that guy. And also, people talk about that all the time, like when you don't care, right?
Right.
It happens when you get on a plane to go on a trip, you get the first audition, in a year, because you're focused on your life and what matters to you and your creative experience.
And some of that starts looking like pushing back against this "I need to out-hustle everyone" attitude, and understanding balance and hustling smarter. And in your business, it's not about how many numbers can I run. It's about How can I be present? How can I care for my instrument, myself, my mind, my body, so that I can, navigate my way through this emotionally violent industry, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, we see that at the studio when that shift happens, like that first time you or I, because we've been evangelizing about this thing for a long time, about being the industry, making your own work, that the first time that I get an email with the link to that Vimeo page where someone shot something and the ownership that they have, the leadership that radiates from them and the good things that happen as a result, whether that was the thing that got picked up by the studio or sold at the film festival or whatever or not, that's a massive shift because they've decided to get out of jail. They've broken out, and so that as a practice, I think, is pretty important.
Well, but yeah. I mean, this is what's really important. And then, like, when you talk about creating work, there is that's part of taking ownership. Because if you're going to make it in Hollywood, you got to be driving the car. You can't be waiting for somebody else to be doing that. So, so these are steps that you can take that will change the way you experience Hollywood and the way Hollywood, whatever that means to you, experiences you. Because you know what? At the end of the day, this is so important for you guys. These are just people out there hustling, trying to get through their day. We have studio executives, the heads of studios who are in class with us. They come here for their creative soul, but they are just, trying to get through the day. And they talk about that in class, that just a bunch of people trying to, to stay afloat, trying to find one little creative spark, trying to pay the bills and do their work. And so they're not ignoring you. They're not being malicious and keeping you out of their, fancy whatever you think Hollywood is. But you just have to remember that you are working side by side these people. You're no different than them. They're no better than you. They're not higher up on the, hierarchical, industry food chain. There's no such thing really. Now there's ego. A lot of people get sucked into that, and a lot of people wear the suits because they love the idea of all that. But they're doing what they believe is their creative pursuit. So if they're an agent or a studio executive or even a lawyer in this town, they're doing it because that's for them the most creative thing they can think of doing. And then on the side, they're coming to class or, making a film of their own and trying to. I was talking to a friend of mine who's made a shit ton of money, and he's just sold everything, has so much cash, and he's going back to New York to the theater, where he started 40 years later, to find his soul.
Yeah, because you lose it along the way, unless you're dedicated to a practice of not only getting ahead, but keeping the work with you, keeping the art with you. Because the industry isn't necessarily designed to satisfy that, nurture that for you. And some of the folks that we have here in class, they're in the industry. You talked about some just now, but there are others. There are actors who are in the industry doing this, but this is where they fill the tank. You
have to fill the tank.
And I think that's an important, whether you consider it self-care or an audition technique or whatever, it's all the same shit, right? Like you have to have some sort of practice of nurturing your artistry, nurturing that 5-year-old kid who was dancing around and singing and all that kind of stuff, pretending, because that's what you're selling ultimately, and that's the thing that's going to keep you happy. So I always marvel at the fancy actors, who walk into class here because they've come to a place of understanding that they're not above the work, which is important, because nobody is, but you can start thinking that you are, and that gets really awful, because then you just stop working on it because you feel like you got it, and then there's the expectation, I should have it because I'm the series regular, but then it starts eroding, and it gets nasty. But also they have reacquainted themselves, or perhaps some never left that acquaintance with the love of the work. And those are things that you have to have. And if you stray too far from them, you're done.
We get a lot of questions about casting, about auditioning, about your careers, about the business, and we want to focus on some of the ones we hear often. So we're going to take one right now with great question. Let's talk about that.
Andre in West Hollywood asks, so he says, I keep hearing about networking in this town. What does that even mean? Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, networking.
It is not a bad word. It sounds like it's a scary word, but it's really not.
It elicits some like stale corporate like beige situation. People with it's this awful mixer idea for me, right?
Right. You go to a network event.
Oh my goodness.
And you stand there with a cocktail and you meet people and you exchange business cards.
Right. Can you
That's
imagine?
the idea.
Yeah,
it's so
right.
archaic.
Except, and this is everything we've been talking about, right? Like networking doesn't have to be that. Really, ultimately, it's about relationships.
Yeah.
And someone saying, hey, I'm going to shoot this thing and I need this. And that person says, oh, I know somebody. It's this person, right? Or there's this amazing director and she's going to knock your socks off. And I know you need a director. So there's a need. And then you fill the need with somebody that you know, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you get to know people? And under what circumstances? You can go to the industry networking, blah, 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 which is fine if that's what you want to do. But to me, that adds an extra step because they have to meet you. You say hello, you exchange cards, or go to the website, blah, blah, blah. Alternatively, you can meet people in the damn work. And that's to me, that's the best kind of networking.
Yes, it's really
I did 3 shorts with this person. They showed up on time. They did great work, like impeccable credentials. And so I want you to work with this person again. Like that's networking.
And it is all about relationships. But it's also when you have those relationships or when you make those relationships, that you have to be ready with something to show up with.
Right.
It's not just, hey, I'm here, so can I have an audition? You have to be able to show up with some agency. And so that means that you've got to have some stuff to talk about. You've got to have some stuff behind you that's, part of your artistic arsenal, so that you can talk with a certain amount of authority and agency and people can take you seriously.
And not just BS, but like actually be walking the talk of I'm doing an artistic, journey. I'm on an artistic journey here. This is an artistic life I have. I'm directing this thing. I'm writing this thing. My friend and I are doing this thing. I have 3 auditions to like that sort of thing, which you can speak of with some authority because it's true.
Because it's true. And it is all about relationships, and they happen in ways that you never expect. And so I did this thing at the SAG Conservatory, and it was an event, and I told people, they said, well, how could we become a reader in your casting room? And I said, email me. And I did it almost as a test to see, how do I find your email? I go, you can find my email. It's really easy. I'm online. And again, just to see. And then I had about 20 people email me. And I looked at the difference, though, among all of those people who were like, hey, again, coming at me with a lot of need, and other people who showed up with agency, with authority. Hey, there's this thing I just shot, and we know some of the same people, and this is what I want to offer you as a reader. People who spoke to me as human beings with agency, and that was different. And so those people I paid attention to, those people I, have been emailing back and forth with. And I think it's just realizing that you can go to any of those events, but you've got to remember the human beingness in this, and also what do you have to offer those people that's really authentic to who you are. This is a small town. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
You're in people's lives and in their worlds, whether you realize it or not. And so just keep your eyes open for that. Trust that the relationships that you're going to make are going to be valuable, and continue to take that one extra step to have a human connection with those people, and it will pay off over time. That is what networking is, and you can do it starting now. Just figure out some of the people that you know and how you want to engage with them, artist to artist, human to human, professional to professional, and those things will start to build on their own, I promise.
Absolutely. If you have a question that you'd like to have answered here on the Acting Podcast, email us at theactingpodcast@gmail.com. That's theactingpodcast@gmail.com. And put "great question" in the subject line so we'll know. We're ready to hear your question and offer our take on the answer. Go ahead and email today. We're here.
And now, back to our conversation. So the question is, how do you fill up the tank? What are you doing for yourself every day to fill that tank? Are you in class? Are you doing plays? Are you creating a community of people creating work and readings and getting together so that you are filling up that void, if so to speak? Are you making work? Are you also doing other things that are creative in your life that may not feel aligned to acting, but they may be incredibly aligned to acting because it's a creative expression? Are you a photographer? Are you writing blogs? Are you being on set and helping other people make films? We have actors from the studio who have become producers and filmmakers, because that helps to feed them, and they have discovered a new talent, and by discovering that new talent or that new ability, they're getting excited again. Oh, and then some audition comes in, and that's fine because they're producing 2 shorts that month, but now they have an audition, but they're just deep inside their power, which is their personal power in all of this. And then suddenly the audition doesn't have the same weight, but they can navigate it with a certain amount of ease and presence and power. And that's important for you to know also, because if you're doing that kind of stuff, it's really interesting how then you produce a short, and then you find a short that someone's writing, and then there's a role for you, and then you do this amazing thing. Now you've produced, 10 shorts, and you get this role of a lifetime, and you do great work, and nobody would have created that for you otherwise, and you created it for yourself over time.
That's an interesting thing, and I think you probably can trace this back. So once you get to a certain place, if you think of one of the spikes of what one might say is success for you in your career, or ones that I had if I did in my acting career also, and you trace back their trajectory, you couldn't have said, oh yeah, I was going, that's the exact situation I was going for, and that's what I got. You kind of reverse engineer it and go, oh wow, that little thing that I did, or that big thing that I did was because I worked with that producer who was a line producer on this thing, and she knew me through this, but that only happened because of this. And you trace it back and you realize that you can't necessarily plan this thing, if at all. And you're probably best served by staying open and walking through doors and taking every opportunity to be an artist, and then good things happen. Then there's things start moving towards you, which is interesting.
And I think when you have that, you can then approach the industry from a place of compassion, with generosity, which we should talk about, because that's something that I guess actors, you guys, you're sitting in your own stuff of what do I need to do to sell myself to those people, and it becomes self-absorbed. And I'm not saying that critically. It just happens because you think I'm supposed to take new headshots and make this reel and make a website, and now I have to tell that, and so I'm going to make a newsletter, and I'm going to send it to casting directors, and I'm going to say, this is what I'm up to, and this is what I'm doing, and look at me, look at me, look at me. And then suddenly it makes people anxious. When I get those emails, I get anxious because I don't know. I feel like, do I have to take care of this person? What do I have to do? All this stuff is coming at me.
Right.
And then I get the email from somebody who is speaking to me, as a fellow traveler, without feeling like I'm more important than them, because I'm so not, and offering something of themselves, and seeing me because I'm another human being, and suddenly I'm dealing with another human, and I'm dealing with somebody who's offering something, and it's a really different experience, and I pay attention to those, because just on a human level, I'm not taken aback. I don't feel responsible. I don't feel like someone is asking me to, do something for them. And I know that that's the case for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some of these points that we were going to talk about in and around how to make it in Hollywood, and we're reaching them all, I think, which is interesting because they're in our journeys. We sort of we have them, we know them. Elements of don't expect the industry to chase you. Take responsibility, be in the work all the time. The notions of self-care. And I think a big one in and around networking, quote unquote, which you just chatted about, maybe we talked about this too, but community, which I want to really underline.
Huge.
This notion
I'm
of
glad you brought that up.
Well, and again, we've been talking about it, that meeting people in the work and reaching out to them to help them in their shooting and they with yours, getting together pretty consistently. But if you start feeling like you're on an island and you get lost, as you just described, in your own need, so much so that you can't see through the fog of it because you want this thing so badly and have sacrificed so much, so you can't see through it to look at the other person and say, hey, what do you need from me? But I think community does that. It keeps you accountable. It keeps you in a place of understanding that even here in Los Angeles, what some consider the belly of the beast of the industry, you're walking shoulder to shoulder with other fellow travelers, as you said, fellow artists who are trying for the same stuff of artistic growth and emotional growth and reaching people in new and interesting ways. And I think that is seeing their experience and your experience are one. The expression of their singularity creates universality. It makes you feel like you're part of something, which I think actors ultimately want. They want connection, right? But here you are in Los Angeles pursuing this individual goal, only talking to your agent, or if you don't have one, not, once a week, and that's the extent of your...
And you're working the side job, and that becomes where all your energy goes, and it can feel debilitating if you don't have that community of people to come back to. Right. And you know what's really interesting about this? I just thought of this while you were talking about it. You want to be doing this work because this work is done communally.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do, yes, you can dance around in your basement by yourself to music, and I hope you all do that a lot. Mm-hmm. But this work is communal, making movies, making theater, making TV shows. It's a communal experience.
Right. And
if you don't have that, you need to create that. And there's so many of you, of all of us, who need that and crave it. And when we find it, we realize, oh, that's it right there. And that's why we made the studio, so that we could have that for ourselves and to hold space for other people to have that, and then watch other people commune and create work together. And even if it's getting together with a bunch of people on a Sunday night in a living room and reading Chekhov, whatever it is, it will change everything. And you will then have this sort of capsule, this, of communal experience, and those cells expand, and then you have a theater company or a film, collective, and then, you take over Hollywood, because that's the kind of stuff that this town and this industry is actually made of.
Sure. I think one of the important things that happens in community too, we do corporate coaching, and you get someone who's 16 hours a day behind a computer, not talking to any other human being, and then ask them to get in front of, a client or a customer or whatever. That practice hasn't been laid in. So the isolation of a town like Los Angeles creates a situation in which you may not be in the practice of, through your art or even a conversation, watching someone else, affecting them, being affected, being vulnerable with them. And then all of a sudden you get the audition, and either it's a self-tape with the self-tape reader or whatever, and you're expected to, at a championship level, engage with that person fully. So, so many benefits to community, but one of them is that immediate feedback of having to engage with other human beings who are fellow artists and on the same path.
Yeah, I keep coming back to that all the time. And we'll talk about that on another episode, but it's everything. And without that, for me, I'm lost in the woods. I don't have any sense of myself if I don't have that kind of connection. And I see that here at the studio for actors all the time, and just people are happier, more connected, more alive human beings. You hold each other accountable, and you stimulate each other, and you're in and of the work with each other, and it's not about yourself anymore. And those are steps you can take to being seen here.
You're just in that practice of collaboration, which I think is so, so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we wrap up here, I think what's so important here is these notions of taking leadership, taking responsibility. And part of the responsibility is coming back to the work you love pretty consistently and doing it in community. What's so interesting here is that when people hear a title of a podcast like this, they're looking for the checklist of the doing things. Give me the thing I can do to practice in front of the thing, to do the right self-tape to get to the thing. And what we're offering are broader notions that give you balance and flexibility and make sure that you don't get knocked off your path at year 5 when you have the potential of a 25-year career. Because you started focusing on the minutia, thinking you could control things that you shouldn't control and can't control. Mm-hmm. And what we're saying from everything we know, decades on both sides of the camera in this industry, is that this kind of stuff overall is the stuff that wins the day.
It does. It does. It wins the day. I just want to say one more thing.
Go on.
Okay, only because it really is sparking something. One of the things that I've noticed, and I always knew this, I knew this about myself, but I've noticed it in other people lately. I've seen some people, when we talked about leadership, who are taking command of their careers, and some of that just means hard work, consistent hard work.
Yeah.
I don't mean toiling work, but the thing about change your discipline. We had somebody here in class the other day who was teaching the practice of writing. And she did 2 classes with me. And one of the things that blew me away after both classes, and I think everybody was really surprised by it, is how hard she works, how long it takes to craft a script and a story. And it was, oh my God. She gave the class an exercise on character, which was doing a deep dive into the background of a character and then a world. And she said each one of these is 25 pages, and people gasped. And then she talked about the process of creating a script. Now, sometimes, you have that moment and you write that script and you do it in a weekend and, it's like magical and all that stuff. But there's nothing magical about this. And that's really important for you guys to remember. It is doing the hard work. And we see that consistently. It's sometimes you are in class for 5 years before you get that aha moment. Sometimes you'll do 10 plays before you figure out that you have ease in front of an audience. Sometimes it is the 100th self-tape, but you're practicing it. You're doing the work. You're not sitting there waiting for something magical to happen, whether it comes from an agent or an executive or this notion of Hollywood or the industry. There's nothing magical about that. You do the consistent hard work of this thing, and it starts to show up. You do more than 10,000 hours. It's like 100,000 hours of this thing, and you don't stop doing it. You are in the consistent practice of doing that kind of really deep work as a creator, as an artist, as an actor, and things change. People pay attention to that. It changes when you walk into the audition room. It changes when you engage with the industry on any level.
And to me, that speaks to 2 things, or brings up 2 things for me. The first is that, because the work is far more interesting and far more important than something that can be learned in a weekend, or you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
It's dynamic and it changes, and your relationship to it changes, and there's always another door to be opened, which is so exciting. And the other part of it is, because it is that, you better love it. And you better do the work of loving it to support all that hard work.
Yes, totally. This is not easy.
Right.
Yeah. The ease is in the love, but you better love it because
right. You better even love the frustration,
yes.
right? Or figure out ways to love the frustration.
Yeah, and take care of yourself in that. Yeah.
Because I think ultimately, and I think you would agree with me that when it comes down to it, it's just about the best thing you can do. You and I have moments multiple times a week where we are healed. Like I'm not trying to be like all Jimmy Swaggart or whatever, but it's like, it's the truth, man. Like work happens here, and it is stunning. And like that forever. Let's just do that forever, And by the way, then the industry starts noticing if you're doing that kind of work consistently.
Yeah, amen. We love sharing this content with our community. We offer it 100% free, and it's our privilege to do so. If you're loving this podcast and you're interested in offering something in return, go ahead and subscribe to the Acting Podcast. Find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to your podcast, and leave us an honest rating and review. Your words will help us bring this work to even more actors and artists around the world.
Thank you so much for listening and for being here with us. We love how this community shows up for us and for each other, online and in the studio. And as a thank you to our incredible community, we want to give you an amazing free gift. It's called the Comprehensive Guide to the Perfect Self-Tape.
So all you have to do is screenshot your review, send it to theactingpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll send you an exclusive gift of the Perfect Self-Tape Guide to take your work to the next level.
And come visit us online at thebgbstudio.com. And if you're in LA, Atlanta, or New York, jump into a class with us. We're here to get you into the kind of shape necessary to be successful.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share our next episode with you.